When a man finds himself in a situation where he is involved with two women simultaneously, he is not simply navigating the emotional complexities of individual relationships, but also confronting fundamental questions about his own identity, integrity, and sense of responsibility. The emotional entanglements that can arise from such a situation are profound and often lead to deep self-reflection, if the man is willing to engage with them honestly. In the midst of this, there are core principles that come to the fore, principles that can guide a person not only through a specific relational dilemma, but also through the broader journey of understanding their role in the world and how they ought to behave in complex circumstances. We may sense, further forward, that the conflicts that so often transpire within a marriage is really the transpersonal conflict of humanity. The first thing a man must confront when involved with two women is the question of honesty. To be involved with two women at once, without both being aware of the situation, requires deceit. There is no getting around it. Secrecy is inherent to such an arrangement. But the question then becomes, what kind of person is it who deceives those with whom they are close? In this case, a woman and a man. Their various experiences with one woman, what does it say about the man who operates under a cloak of dishonesty, even if he is doing so with the intention of sparing the feelings of others or avoiding conflict? The truth is that such behavior ultimately undermines trust, not only with the people involved, but also within oneself. When a man deceives the women in his life, he is simultaneously deceiving himself. The self is built on a foundation of authenticity and integrity, and when he chooses to lie or withhold the truth, he is eroding that foundation. This leads to a conflict between the person he projects to the world and the person he truly is, creating internal chaos. The key question becomes, does he want to be a person of integrity? Does he want to look in the mirror and respect the man he sees? Or will he continue down a path that leads to self-doubt and self-loathing? It is essential that a man be willing to confront this inner turmoil, for it is not merely the women involved who are affected by deceit, but the very essence of his own character that is on trial. In a situation where a man is dealing with two women, the ethical complexity is further compounded by the emotional stakes involved. Each woman brings with her a set of expectations, desires, and vulnerabilities. These women, like all people, are not simply objects of desire or companionship, but individuals with their own dreams, fears, and needs. By participating in a relationship with more than one woman, a man risks entangling these emotions in ways that are unfair to both parties. The hurt, betrayal, and confusion that can emerge are not only painful for the women involved, but also for the man himself, as he is forced to confront the emotional devastation his actions have caused. It is easy to justify such behavior on the grounds of human nature. After all, men and women are often drawn to multiple partners at once. The desire for novelty, variety, and excitement is a powerful force. However, just because something is natural does not mean it is advisable or morally acceptable. The question of what is ethical is not merely about following one's impulses, but about recognizing the consequences of one's actions on the lives of others. A man must ask himself, what kind of world do I want to create? What kind of relationships do I want to foster? If the answer is one of honesty, trust, and respect, then he must be willing to make the difficult choices that align with these values, even if it means foregoing immediate gratification or facing the consequences of his actions. The role of commitment in this scenario cannot be overlooked. Commitment is one of the bedrock principles that governs human relationships, particularly intimate ones. When a man makes a commitment to a woman, whether explicitly or implicitly, he is entering into an agreement that involves shared responsibility, mutual respect, and a willingness to grow together. To break that commitment by engaging with someone else is not simply a betrayal of the individual woman, but a betrayal of the fundamental concept of commitment itself. The willingness to honor one's commitments is what separates a person who can be trusted from one who cannot. A man must recognize that commitment is not a simple transaction, but a deep and lasting promise that requires effort, sacrifice, and constant renewal. In the case of two women, the idea of commitment becomes even more complicated. If one woman is unaware of the other, the man is engaging in an implicit commitment with both, but failing to honor it with full transparency. This lack of openness not only undermines the trust between the individuals involved, but also compromises the man's integrity. Can a man truly commit to one woman while dividing his emotional attention between two? It is a question that requires him to examine his motives and his sense of responsibility. Is he avoiding a deeper level of intimacy with one of the women by seeking out another? Is he unwilling to face the difficult, often uncomfortable challenges that arise in committed relationships? These are hard questions, and answering them requires the courage to confront one's own weaknesses. Co-romantic people, the route. Co-romantic people. Another factor to consider is the idea of maturity. Maturity is the ability to make decisions based on long-term consequences rather than short-term desires. It is the capacity to weigh the needs of others alongside one's own, and to act in a way that benefits everyone involved, not just oneself. When a man is involved with two women, it is tempting to think of the situation as a series of short-term pleasures and immediate gratifications. However, maturity demands that he consider the long-term effects of his actions. How will these relationships evolve over time? How will the women involved feel when they eventually discover the truth, if they do? How will the man feel when the emotional damage has been done and trust has been broken? Maturity requires foresight and the willingness to put the well-being of others above one's own fleeting desires. The situation also brings to light the idea of personal growth and self-discipline. Engaging with two women is a form of self-indulgence. It is the pursuit of pleasure without consideration for the larger picture. Personal growth, however, requires a person to resist impulsive urges and make decisions that align with their higher goals and values. In the context of relationships, personal growth means being able to create and nurture healthy, stable partnerships that contribute to one's development as an individual. It requires a man to be honest, loyal, and thoughtful, to consider the needs of others as well as his own, and to act in a way that reflects his highest ideals. When a man is caught in a cycle of deceit and self-indulgence, he is not growing, he is stagnating. Furthermore, when a man deals with two women, he is indirectly placing both women in competition with each other, even if that is not his intention. The emotional dynamic that arises from such a situation is inherently unhealthy. Women, like all people, are looking for stability and trust in their relationships. If a man is unable to provide that by being open and honest, the relationship becomes fraught with insecurity and tension. As a consequence, the woman can no longer be present with her own feelings and desires. The women involved may find themselves questioning their worth, wondering if they are truly valued, or if they are merely placeholders in a larger game of emotional manipulation. This situation breeds mistrust, not only between the women and the man, but also between the women themselves, should they ever become aware of each other's existence. This can create a toxic environment where jealousy, resentment, and suspicion take root, leading to a breakdown of communication and ultimately the collapse of the relationship. A man who finds himself in such a situation must also consider the impact on his own well-being. Relationships are not merely external affairs, they are internal processes that affect one's mental and emotional health. When a man lives in deceit and is torn between two people, he is constantly under stress. He must keep track of lies, manage conflicting emotions, and deal with the cognitive dissonance of pretending to be someone he is not. This creates an internal environment that is far from peaceful. The anxiety, guilt, and confusion that come from trying to maintain multiple relationships are not conducive to mental well-being. In fact, they often lead to burnout and emotional exhaustion. A man who is constantly juggling lies and emotional attachments is robbing himself of the peace of mind that comes from living authentically. In the end, the situation demands a deeper reflection on the nature of love and human connection. Love in its truest form is not about possession or ownership, but about mutual respect, understanding, and care. When a man is involved with two women, he is not showing love in this sense. Instead, he is using people as means to an end, treating them as sources of validation or pleasure, rather than as whole beings deserving of respect and consideration. If a woman is sensitive to her needs, she suffers from social rigidity rather than as whole beings deserving of respect and consideration. True love requires sacrifice, discipline, and the courage to face the discomforts that arise in deep relationships. It requires a man to engage with the other person honestly, without deceit or manipulation. To be truly free in one's relationships, a man must first be free within himself. He must align his actions with his highest values, be honest with himself about his desires and intentions, and be willing to take responsibility for the consequences of his choices. Only then can he begin to build relationships that are rooted in trust, respect, and love. When a man is willing to confront the deeper aspects of his own character, when he is willing to grapple with the complexities of human relationships, he opens the door to a life of genuine connection, growth, and meaning. The foundation of any meaningful relationship is honesty. A man must be truthful not only with others, but also with himself, confronting the internal conflict that arises when engaging in deceitful behavior. Integrity ensures that trust is maintained, both in relationships and in one's own sense of self. Self-awareness is the foundation of trust. It allows men to accept themselves as they are. Integrity promotes trust. Commitment is a fundamental principle that governs intimate relationships. A man must recognize the importance of honoring his commitments, understanding that breaking trust or engaging in multiple relationships without transparency undermines the stability and health of both the individuals involved and his own moral character. True personal growth involves the ability to make decisions that align with higher values, even when faced with short-term temptations. A man must practice self-discipline and resist impulsive desires to foster relationships that contribute to his long-term development, emotional well-being, and a deeper connection with others. Honesty and integrity are concepts that go far beyond simple ethical principles or abstract ideas. They are deeply embedded in the fabric of human existence and play a critical role in the way individuals interact with the world around them. The significance of honesty cannot be overstated, especially in relationships, where it functions as the cornerstone for trust, stability, and long-term emotional connection. When a person, particularly a man, is involved with two women, his commitment to honesty and integrity becomes even more pivotal. In such a complex scenario, the presence or absence of these qualities defines the emotional and psychological landscape of all individuals involved, including the man himself. To understand the importance of honesty and integrity in this context, it is necessary to first acknowledge the nature of human relationships. Relationships, whether romantic, familial, or professional, are based on trust. Trust is not something that can be demanded or coerced, but rather something that must be earned. It is built upon the consistent demonstration of honesty and integrity. When a person lies or withholds the truth, that person fractures the trust they share with others. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild, and its absence creates a toxic environment where insecurity, suspicion, and emotional instability can thrive. This is particularly true in intimate relationships, where emotional vulnerability is at its peak. Consider the situation in which a man is involved with two women. If the man is dishonest with either or both of the women, he risks destroying the trust that forms the very foundation of the relationship. If the women discover the truth, the trust that once existed is shattered, and the emotional pain experienced is often profound. Not only is there a breach of trust between the man and the women, but also between the women themselves, should they become aware of one another. The deception creates a ripple effect that causes emotional harm not only to the person being lied to, but also to the person doing the lying. The dishonesty becomes a reflection of the man's inability or unwillingness to be open, transparent, and accountable. It represents a failure to uphold the standards of honesty and integrity that are necessary for the relationship to thrive. Honesty in its truest form involves more than simply telling the truth. It means being open, transparent, and willing to confront difficult truths, even when they might lead to uncomfortable consequences. The challenge of honesty is not simply in disclosing facts, but in revealing the deeper, sometimes painful aspects of one's own heart and mind. It requires a level of vulnerability that can be difficult for many people to embrace. This is especially the case when a man is faced with the challenge of navigating relationships with multiple people at once. He may be reluctant to reveal the full truth, fearing rejection, judgment, or the loss of something he values. However, it is precisely in moments of discomfort, when honesty requires the greatest courage, that the integrity of the relationship is tested. A man who is willing to confront the full weight of the truth is more likely to build a foundation of trust and respect, even if the truth initially brings pain or conflict. The alternative, remaining dishonest, is often far more damaging in the long run. The act of being honest also involves a commitment to self-awareness. A man must be attuned to his own feelings, desires, and motivations in order to express them clearly and authentically. When a person hides behind half-truths or rationalizations, they are denying themselves the opportunity for genuine self-reflection. Dishonesty in this sense becomes a form of self-deception. It is an avoidance of confronting uncomfortable feelings or difficult truths about one's own behavior. When a man is involved with two women and chooses not to reveal this to either of them, he is not only betraying their trust, but also betraying his own understanding of who he is and what he wants. He is unable to be honest with himself, which makes it nearly impossible for him to be honest with others. Integrity is the natural extension of honesty. While honesty refers to the act of being truthful, integrity speaks to the consistency of one's character over time. A person with integrity is someone whose actions align with their values, even when they are not being watched, or when doing the right thing might be difficult or unpopular. Integrity is about more than just avoiding deceit. It's about choosing to do what is right, even when it costs something personally. In the context of a man who is involved with two women, integrity demands that he act in a way that is consistent with his values and the promises he has made, both to himself and to others. That said, integrity, like honesty, is not situational. It is not something that one can choose to embody only when it is convenient. True integrity means that a person acts with consistency regardless of the circumstances. It means that, even in moments of temptation, when the man might be tempted to engage in deceitful behavior, he holds himself to a higher standard. Integrity requires the courage to make difficult choices, even when those choices might lead to immediate discomfort or loss. A man who acts with integrity, even in the face of complex emotional dynamics, is one who honors his commitments and treats others with respect, regardless of the circumstances. And this is particularly important in relationships. In a situation where a man is involved with two women, integrity would demand that he be open and honest with both of them, acknowledging his involvement with the other and allowing them to make informed decisions about how to proceed. It would require him to confront the reality of his actions and be accountable for the impact they have on the lives of others. It would also demand that he examine his own motivations, why he has chosen to be involved with two women, and confront the potential flaws in his own character that are driving his behavior. Integrity does not allow for the avoidance of responsibility or the manipulation of others for personal gain. The absence of honesty and integrity in relationships is often tied to deeper issues of fear, insecurity, or immaturity. When a man is not honest with the women in his life, it is often because he fears the consequences of revealing the truth. He may be afraid of rejection, loss, or judgment. The lies may stem from a desire to protect himself or avoid discomfort, but in reality, these lies are damaging not only to those around him, but to himself as well. Dishonesty keeps him trapped in a cycle of fear and avoidance, preventing him from growing emotionally and psychologically. Integrity, on the other hand, requires the courage to face uncomfortable truths, not only about others, but also about oneself. It demands that a man be willing to look beyond his fears and take responsibility for his actions, no matter how difficult that may be. A person who lacks integrity is often someone who is driven by short-term desires at the expense of long-term fulfillment and peace. A man who chooses dishonesty over truth may find temporary relief in his deceit, but he will ultimately feel unfulfilled and disconnected. The internal dissonance created by dishonesty leads to anxiety, guilt, and shame, all of which undermine a person's well-being. A man who operates without integrity is living a fragmented life, divided between the version of himself that he presents to the world and the version of himself that he keeps hidden. This internal conflict eats away at his sense of self-worth and emotional stability. Therefore, the cultivation of honesty and integrity requires intentional effort and self-discipline. It involves setting clear standards for one's behavior and holding oneself accountable to them, even when doing so might be inconvenient or difficult. It also requires a willingness to confront one's own flaws and shortcomings rather than pretending they don't exist. Honesty and integrity are not traits that can be adopted overnight. They are cultivated through consistent, conscious choices. It is a lifelong process of becoming the person one aspires to be, a person whose actions reflect their values and whose relationships are built on trust and mutual respect. A man who practices honesty and integrity will find that his relationships are more meaningful and fulfilling. When honesty is present, there is no need to hide, no need to deceive, no need to constantly worry about being caught in a lie. Instead, there is space for vulnerability, connection, and authentic intimacy. Integrity creates a sense of emotional security, both for the man and for those with whom he interacts. It fosters an environment in which trust can flourish and where mutual respect is the foundation upon which a relationship can grow. Ultimately, honesty and integrity are not merely about following rules or moral standards. They are about living in alignment with one's truest self and treating others with the respect they deserve. In the context of relationships, they are the bedrock upon which genuine connection and emotional intimacy are built. When a man practices honesty and integrity, he is not just building trust with others, he is also building trust with himself. He is creating a life that is rooted in authenticity, responsibility, and a deep commitment to living in accordance with his highest values. Such a life, while not without challenges, is one that is rich with meaning, growth, and lasting fulfillment. Commitment and responsibility are two of the most crucial and interwoven concepts that govern the structure and success of meaningful relationships, personal growth, and societal functioning. These concepts are essential not only in romantic partnerships, but also in every domain of life. Work, family, and community. At the core of these values is the understanding that to engage in something with purpose, depth, and authenticity, one must be willing to honor one's word, take ownership of actions, and show a willingness to endure the hardships that come with these obligations. In the case of a man who finds himself in a relationship with two women, the importance of commitment and responsibility becomes even more pronounced, as these qualities serve as the foundation for trust, stability, and mutual respect within the relationship. Commitment, in its most essential form, refers to the act of dedicating oneself to a cause, individual, or relationship with sincerity, consistency, and perseverance. It is not a fleeting decision made in the heat of passion or under temporary circumstances, but a long-term choice that requires deliberate effort and sacrifice. A person who is committed demonstrates their dedication, not only through their words but also through their actions. In a romantic relationship, commitment is not simply about saying "I love you" or making promises in moments of emotional intensity. It is about consistently showing up, day after day, in ways that are meaningful to the other person. Commitment involves prioritizing the relationship, even when it is challenging or inconvenient, and making choices that contribute to the growth and well-being of both individuals involved. In the context of a man who is engaged with two women, the concept of commitment becomes especially complex. Personal growth and self-discipline are two pillars that support a life lived with purpose, intention, and fulfillment. They are not concepts that can be easily mastered, nor are they attributes that come without effort. Instead, they are ongoing processes, a continual journey of self-improvement and emotional evolution that demands commitment, time, and consistent effort. These concepts are vital not just in personal achievement but also in the quality of relationships, particularly when navigating complex situations, such as being involved with two women. In these circumstances, personal growth and self-discipline become key factors in making choices that align with integrity, responsibility, and authenticity. Personal growth is the process of improving oneself through learning, self-reflection, and taking deliberate steps toward becoming a more well-rounded, thoughtful, and emotionally mature individual. It is not a destination but a continuous path of development that stretches across all aspects of life: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And the more we accept, at its core, personal growth is about expanding one's awareness, challenging old habits, and striving toward a greater sense of self-understanding and personal satisfaction. It involves confronting one's weaknesses, fears, and insecurities and using those challenges as stepping stones toward a more grounded and resilient self. When a man finds himself involved with two women, his ability to engage in personal growth is challenged in ways that demand introspection. A lack of personal growth in such a situation could manifest as impulsivity, a disregard for others' feelings, or an unwillingness to face uncomfortable truths about oneself. Without growth, a man may become trapped in cycles of selfish behavior, emotional avoidance, or dishonesty. And so, with growth in selfishness behavior, emotional avoidance, or dishonesty, these tendencies not only harm those around him but also limit his own emotional and psychological evolution. Personal growth, on the other hand, requires that he confront the complexities of his behavior and motives, examine his relationships with both women, and take responsibility for his actions. Growth doesn't occur in an environment where avoidance or self-deception reigns. It happens when one is willing to face the truth about their emotions, desires, and the consequences of their decisions. In order to engage in personal growth, a man must first cultivate the ability to be self-aware. Self-awareness is the cornerstone of personal development because it enables a person to recognize their strengths, weaknesses, desires, and patterns of behavior. Without self-awareness, it is nearly impossible to change or grow because one is essentially blind to the underlying motivations driving their actions. In the case of a man who is involved with two women, self-awareness would involve understanding why he is behaving in a way that is potentially harmful or dishonest. It would require him to ask difficult questions about what he seeks in relationships, what drives his actions, and how his decisions impact others. The ability to reflect on one's behavior and its consequences is crucial for making better, more thoughtful choices going forward. Personal growth also involves the willingness to challenge one's own biases, limitations, and assumptions. Often, people operate within the confines of outdated beliefs or patterns that were shaped by childhood experiences, past relationships, or cultural influences. These mental frameworks can limit one's ability to see the world clearly, to interact with others authentically, or to make choices that align with one's higher values. When a man is involved with two women, it is likely that he is motivated by deeper emotional needs or insecurities. Perhaps he fears commitment, craves validation, or is unable to confront deeper emotional issues that prevent him from being fully vulnerable in relationships. These deeper issues must be examined and worked through if true personal growth is to occur. The key to personal growth lies in the willingness to engage with discomfort. Growth rarely occurs when life is easy or when everything aligns perfectly. In fact, personal growth is often catalyzed by challenge and adversity. It is when a person is faced with a difficult situation, such as the emotional complexities of being involved with two women, that the opportunity for growth arises. These moments force individuals to reflect on their behavior, to evaluate their emotional intelligence, and to consider the greater impact of their actions. Without the willingness to confront and learn from discomfort, one risks stagnation, repeating the same patterns, and remaining emotionally immature. For a man to mature in his relationships, he must first learn how to manage his own emotional responses, how to be accountable for his choices, and how to take responsibility for creating an environment that fosters trust and mutual respect. Self-discipline, on the other hand, is the ability to control one's emotions, behaviors, and desires in the face of external demands in order to achieve a greater goal. It is the practice of restraint, focus, and delayed gratification. Self-discipline is essential for personal growth because it enables individuals to stay focused on their long-term goals and to resist the temptations that might derail them. For a man who is involved with two women, self-discipline is necessary to remain honest, responsible, and consistent in his actions. It is about resisting the urge to act impulsively, to seek immediate pleasure or validation, and instead staying committed to his higher values and long-term well-being. Self-discipline requires a level of maturity that is not always easy to achieve, but it is a key element of building a stable, grounded life that is aligned with one's true desires and values. In practical terms, self-discipline can be seen in the ability to make decisions that are in line with long-term happiness rather than short-term gratification. For example, if a man knows that being dishonest or deceitful will create emotional turmoil for everyone involved, he can exercise self-discipline by resisting the temptation to hide the truth. Instead of seeking immediate relief from uncomfortable emotions, he can choose to confront the situation directly, knowing that doing so will lead to better outcomes in the long run. Self-discipline requires making decisions that honor one's integrity and commitments, even when those decisions are difficult or unpleasant. Furthermore, self-discipline is about setting clear boundaries and sticking to them. In the case of a man involved with two women, this might mean establishing clear communication about his intentions and being upfront with both women about the situation. It requires resisting the urge to avoid difficult conversations or hide the truth, knowing that such actions will only prolong the discomfort and damage the trust in the relationships. Self-discipline involves consistently making choices that reflect one's higher values, regardless of external pressures or internal temptations. The development of self-discipline also plays a critical role in emotional regulation. Emotions, particularly in relationships, can be intense and overwhelming, leading individuals to make decisions they might later regret. Self-discipline allows a man to manage his emotional impulses and act with thoughtfulness, clarity, and empathy. When one's emotions are in control, it becomes much easier to approach situations with a sense of calm and maturity, rather than reacting impulsively or rashly. Emotional self-discipline enables a man to navigate complex emotional situations, like being involved with two women, with a greater degree of responsibility and understanding. In the context of relationships, self-discipline helps maintain respect for both oneself and others. It prevents a person from engaging in manipulative or hurtful behavior for personal gain or temporary satisfaction. When a man practices self-discipline, he is not only building a stronger relationship with himself, but also ensuring that the relationships he is involved in are healthy, authentic, and rooted in mutual respect. Personal growth and self-discipline are interconnected. Without growth, there is no foundation for the kind of self-discipline that is necessary to maintain consistency in one's actions. Similarly, without self-discipline, personal growth remains ungrounded, with the individual unable to make the necessary changes required for their own development. For example, a man might recognize that his involvement with two women is not aligned with his values or long-term goals. However, without the self-discipline to stop acting on short-term desires or impulses, he may continue down a path that ultimately leads to emotional pain, confusion, and damage to those around him. Personal growth and self-discipline must work together in harmony for an individual to lead a life that is purposeful, intentional, and emotionally fulfilling. Good intentions may be critical and important, but without varied and levels of intentional patterns, they become meaningless to anyone. In practical terms, personal growth and self-discipline also mean developing the ability to learn from mistakes and setbacks. No one is perfect, and personal growth is not about achieving flawless behavior, but about learning from experiences and evolving as a result. If a man recognizes that his actions have hurt others, he must have the discipline to take responsibility, make amends, and take steps to avoid repeating those actions. This process requires humility, patience, and a willingness to put in the effort necessary to transform behavior. It is through the application of self-discipline that personal growth becomes tangible and actionable. This is what leading with wisdom means as the leader of myself. At the core of personal growth and self-discipline is the recognition that change is possible. No one is locked into their current way of being, and no circumstance is permanent. Growth requires the belief that improvement is possible and that every decision made is an opportunity to become a better version of oneself. Self-discipline is the practice of making choices that align with the person you aspire to be, even when it requires sacrifice or discomfort in the short term. For a man involved with two women, personal growth and self-discipline are about making the choice to evolve beyond patterns of behavior that are unproductive or harmful. It means embracing honesty, responsibility, and commitment, even when it requires difficult changes or sacrifices. It is about moving beyond impulsive actions, temporary desires, or emotional avoidance, and choosing instead to create relationships based on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. Personal growth and self-discipline lead to a deeper sense of fulfillment and a more authentic, connected life. When a man is able to align his actions with his values, to make decisions based on long-term fulfillment rather than short-term gain, he is creating a life that reflects his true desires and purpose. It is through this process of self-mastery and emotional intelligence that one finds a sense of peace, self-respect, and genuine connection with others.